In 1962, the world teetered on the edge of disaster. In the Caribbean, a small island called Cuba became the center of a storm that could ignite a nuclear war. Soviet cargo ships carried hidden weapons toward the island, each missile a ticking time bomb. Soldiers unloaded massive missiles on Cuban soil. Covered by rough tarps, these weapons were hidden from most eyes. High above, reconnaissance planes flew silently, scanning the island for any sign of nuclear threat. From above, the missiles lay in plain sight, a frightening revelation that the world could not ignore. In Washington, analysts examined photos, their faces tense as the evidence unfolded before them. Around the table, advisors debated urgently, every gesture carrying the weight of global consequences. The president stood, aware that every decision now could shape the future of humanity. October days passed, each one marked on the calendar as the tension grew, a countdown toward potential catastrophe. Generals outlined plans, arrows drawn on maps pointing to Cuba. Missiles stood erect on launch pads, guarded closely, ready to fire at a moment's notice. The phone rang incessantly. Every call could carry news that might escalate the crisis further. A lone officer answered, sweat drops marking his worry, knowing that words now mattered as much as weapons. The U.S. Navy formed a blockade, a tense line meant to stop further Soviet shipments from reaching Cuba. A Soviet ship approached cautiously, the world holding its breath as diplomacy and force collided on the sea. Ships met nose to nose, each crew tense, the ocean a silent stage for potential disaster. Beneath the waves, submarines moved stealthily, their presence unknown but deadly. Depth charges fell, shaking the waters and raising stakes that could not be ignored. Inside one submarine, crew members sweated as alarms blared, knowing that any misstep could trigger global conflict. The captain hesitated, hand on the launch key, aware that a single decision could start a nuclear war. An officer grabbed him, stopping the launch, reminding all of the thin line between peace and annihilation. The submarine turned, retreating into deeper waters, narrowly avoiding escalation. Above water, sailors watched tensely, aware of how fragile the balance was. A letter was exchanged, the first step toward de-escalation. The leader read it carefully. Each word weighed for its meaning and potential consequences. A more aggressive letter followed, heightening tension, but also pushing both sides toward negotiation. Advisors argued passionately, their gestures and voices illustrating the stakes in stark, human terms. The president rubbed his face, exhaustion showing from sleepless nights spent weighing global survival. A chalkboard displayed two stark options: attack or talk. The weight of humanity rested on a choice. The president pointed to talk, signaling a decision that favored communication over conflict. Secret messages were sent under cover of night, diplomacy moving quietly where weapons loomed. In Cuba, missiles were partially built, a reminder that danger was tangible, not theoretical. Reconnaissance planes flew high again, each image capturing the grim reality of potential war. A missile launched toward the sky, its path sharp and dangerous, a clear signal of stakes in motion. The plane broke apart mid-air, showing how close disaster really was. A lone pilot descended by parachute, survival against the odds, the human cost starkly visible. News spread rapidly, radios crackling. A clock ticked over a world map, each second a reminder that time was short and decisions mattered. Leaders exchanged letters, every word weighed, every sentence carrying the potential to end or escalate conflict. One letter demanded missile removal, a step toward peace, carefully worded to avoid provocation. Another referenced Turkey, a delicate compromise highlighting the complexity of international negotiation. Both leaders paused, reflecting deeply, aware that a single misstep could cost millions of lives. A handshake was drawn across the ocean, a symbol of diplomacy's triumph over force. Missiles in Cuba were dismantled carefully, each piece removed a tangible victory for peace. Weapons were loaded back onto ships, leaving the island and tension behind. Ships sailed away calmly, the first real sign that the crisis might be over. The blockade line disappeared from the ocean, a visual confirmation that confrontation had eased. The clock stopped on the world map, marking a moment of relief and reflection. Families around the globe could finally breathe. The shadow of nuclear war lifted. Newspapers printed calm headlines, reporting peace instead of panic. Leaders addressed the world, their voices calm but serious, assuring citizens that the crisis was managed. A red phone, once a symbol of alarm, now connected nations to prevent future misunderstandings. Diplomats sat across tables. Their discussions were placing threats with measured negotiation. Nuclear symbols were crossed out, a visual reminder that the weapons of war were not unleashed. A classroom chalkboard displayed 1962, the year when the world almost ended. A teacher explained the events to students, emphasizing the fragility of peace. Young minds listened closely, learning how diplomacy had saved humanity. A sign read, "The closest to nuclear war," reminding all how thin the line had been. Two giant buttons marked war and peace, illustrated the simple yet profound choice facing leaders. A Stickman hand pressed peace, a symbolic act averting global catastrophe. The earth smiled slightly, fragile but resilient, a victory of careful judgment over rash action. Leaders reflected silently, understanding that the crisis had brought them to the edge of disaster. A timeline showed a sharp spike, representing the tense days that could have ended life as they knew it. The red hotline phone remained, a permanent reminder that communication prevents calamity. Flags hung still and calm, no longer signaling imminent danger. Maps were cleared of weapons and arrows, the world returning to a fragile peace. A simple statement appeared: the world survived by talking. A modern classroom sat quietly, students learning from the mistakes of the past. Books titled Cold War lay open, their pages filled with lessons learned the hard way. Missiles were drawn small and distant, a memory rather than a present threat. Children drew peace symbols, illustrating hope for a future free of nuclear fear. The earth appeared larger, calm, stable, a visual testament to the survival of humanity. A simple caption read, "Lessons learned," reinforcing the importance of restraint. Leaders shook hands again, a repeated symbol of diplomacy and trust. A timeline moved forward, life continuing beyond the brink of disaster. A Stickman narrator pointed to the viewer, drawing them into the story, reminding us all of responsibility. History almost ended here. A sobering truth about human choices. The warning was underlined, impossible to ignore, marking the importance of reflection. This was real, grounding the story in historical fact. The narrator closed the book, the story of the crisis complete, but the lessons eternal. The cover read, "Cuban Missile Crisis, a moment preserved for posterity." The book was placed back on a shelf, history safe for those who wish to learn from it. Many history books lined the shelves, each telling a story of humanity's narrow escape from disaster. A label read, "Never Forget," ensuring the lessons endure. The Earth was drawn centered, a final reminder of our shared responsibility for its survival.